new resolution that doesn't refer to that at all, which concerns me.
Yes, I think, you know, I've actually got a bit of a problem with it in that we're the Milton Road Local Liaison Forum. Exactly, and what we have a remit to do is to deal with Milton Road and the surrounds rather than the whole city. I take on board what Mr. Wormsley has said. It doesn't, that perhaps it is acceptable for us to put this forward, and I suppose that our argument can be that if there are changes to Milton Road, then there are going to be issues, well there are issues in any event whether there are changes or not, and those parking problems arise out of this area but go further than this area, don't they? So that maybe we can say that within the context of Milton Road we're putting this forward because the whole problem of the city impacts on Milton Road. Is that an acceptable way to put it?
Going back to what I was sort of ruminating on was the remit of this forum. And this forum is trying to look at situations around Milton Road. I quite take Mr. Bond's point that if you don't think strategically, then you won't get a change. But I think that's for the city deal to sort out. And I think actually what I was thinking about was making this more specific to Milton Road. So, you know, I'm not saying this is the wording, but say Milton Road urges the board to consider, and because I don't know if you remember, but one of the officers recommended us at the last workshop to frame our resolutions in a request for them to consider things. So you know, you could say to remove the charges at Milton Park and Ride, because that will affect Milton Road. If they then think, well, we can't do one and not the other, then that's for them to work out. But what we see is that if you actually took the charges off at Milton Park and Ride, that would sure as heck affect the amount of traffic going along Milton Road. So you'd get everybody on the bus. Everybody would go there. So if they see that that's because I think this whole thing is like, you've got to go for carrot, not stick. So I think we ought to make this resolution specific to Milton Road Local Liaison Forum. Otherwise, the city council won't be able to implement it, even if they wanted to. Well, that's a different issue.
What about if we go back to the Milton Road Local Liaison Forum urges the board to use its influence with the County Council to A, remove the charges at Milton Road, but what is it called? Milton Park and Ride site, and work together with Milton Road residents and neighbourhoods to tackle the problems arising out of commuter parking in residential streets in this area. Further to be, where necessary, and with agreement of residents, through the introduction of residents' parking schemes, and then add a D. Take this resolution into account in respect to all park and ride sites and problems of commuter parking throughout Cambridge. Because if we put that in as a final one, we've made the point that we are focusing on our local area in Milton Road. Would that be satisfactory?
Yes, you started off with the Milton side, and then you've given them the option to consider all specific things.
And also the big full committee major.
The full committee of major engineering works, that is a problem.
Could we not simplify and say the Milton Road Local Liaison Forum urges the board to use its influence to get the City Council to institute a trial neighbourhood Milton Road before creating the major engineering works, and then have the Milton Road Park and Ride as being a different issue.
No, I think it's a strong way. I think with the amendment, but making it specific to Milton.
Perhaps what we should do, does anybody else want to speak on what? Sorry.
In temporary residence parking on a trial basis costs a huge amount of
think I have to agree with Councillor Tunnicliffe that I know that the introduction of residents-only parking in the Debreville area was upwards of £30,000 because of having to put up all the signs to say, what the times are, putting in the pay and display and so on. And that was some years ago now, wasn't it, Councillor? Yeah, and so the cost must have gone up. And if you put it in for a temporary period, apparently you can put a temporary period that would last for 12 months, because there's 6 months in the consultation. Then there's the 12 months where you can do the experiment. And if at the end the experiment doesn't work, then you have to change all the signs. So you've got more expense. But could we proceed perhaps with this amendment, as if I'll read it again. The Milton Road LLF urges the board to use its influence with the County Council to A, remove the charges at Milton Park and Ride site, and B, work together with Milton Road residents and residents of the neighbourhood to tackle problems arising out of commuter parking in residential streets in this area. C, further to B, where necessary and with agreement of residents through the introduction of residents' parking schemes, and D, take this resolution into account in respect of all park and ride sites and problems of commuter parking throughout Cambridge. Would people be happy to vote on this?
Yeah, that's good.
We've still lost the before the engineering point.
Exactly, yes.
Well, I think what we should do is vote on this resolution and then move on to
So you're voting on an amended amendment to the original resolution? Yes.
Perhaps what we should...
You first need to vote on the amendment to the amendment, and then you need to vote
Yes.
on the amendment.
Yes.
On the substantive amendment.
Yes, so can we vote on the... Can we vote on the amended amendment and do it all as one?
I'm very uncomfortable about it, the fact we lose the before the engineering. I think the whole essence is that we need to understand the access issues once restrictions are in place, what it means to the roads and the traffic. And I think without that modelling, and without that, if we do it the wrong way round, we might end up with an infrastructure which isn't serving what we need because of the access.
Yes, Councillor Sargent.
The indications I've been given is that controlling of parking will give an improvement, but only 5%, and that is not enough to resolve the issues that we're likely to face in Milton Road over the next 15 years. Sorry?
Where's the source for that 5%?
Presentation
by the leader of the City Deal with information provided by the City Deal.
Could I just...
Okay.
Sorry, you go on. Oh, I'd like to say something here. I've got to tell you, I'm on the County Council, and we have tried to get rid of the parking charges on the park and ride sites, and I can guarantee that this will be an uphill job, and that the City Deal people, in accordance with the notion of trying to get them to get rid of all the charges on the park and ride sites, it will be uphill. It could actually never ever happen. And so then we're stuck in the position of having Milton Road that had the chance of having the money to actually fix up the road, fix up all the footpaths, and we're not going to have it happen. Because we're sitting here waiting, I'm afraid, for the County Council to take the charges away from park and ride. And that, as I say, is an absolute uphill battle. We tried to stop them from doing that. They're not making as much money as they thought they would, but they're still persisting with it. So we're faced with that. And what I would like to do is put the amendment in the terms it is, and then if somebody would like to make an additional motion in accordance with, we not proceed with this, with anything until we've got rid of the Milton Road charges, park and ride charges, then they can put that motion. Yes, Mr. Bond.
Point of information. I think you'll find that before any engineering works can start, there is another round of consultation
Yes.
in this procedure, which is, I think, scheduled for the middle of next year. So this will actually have gone through before anything like that starts, and that will also be the time to look critically at what changes may or may not have been made.
Thanks, Mr. Bond.
But you're right, they do want to be prevented from enabling the officers to do the work on these these resolutions, because the very last one says actually you can't do any of this unless you take
Get rid of the charges on the
so you don't want to make what is the word hostage to fortune, do you? You don't want to set up an impossible situation. So I think you do. It's a good wish list, isn't it? But it would be very foolish to go ahead with a resolution that actually ties the officers, the city deal officers. So I think
And
not happy with it.
yeah, and it makes the whole city deal subject to the county council.
Yes, exactly, which is just a good idea.
Right.
Well, let's put this, I propose that we put this amendment. The Milton Road Local Liaison Forum urges the board to use its influence with the county council to A, remove the charges at Milton Park and Ride site, and work together with Milton Road residents and residents of the neighbourhood, Milton Road neighbourhood, to tackle problems arising out of commuter parking in residential streets in this area. And C, further to B, when necessary and with agreement of residents through the introduction of residents' parking schemes. And D, take this resolution into account in respect to all park and ride sites and problems of commuter parking throughout Cambridge.
Okay.
Anybody in favour of this motion? Anybody against? Right, 3. Good. And any abstentions? Right, 2 abstentions. Good. And now we proceed to 12. 12 consists of 2 parts. There is 12A. The Local Liaison Forum recommends that the board should ask officers to consider routing any additional non-stopping buses via Elizabeth Way and Chesterton Road. This is in the context of the city's redevelopment plans for Mitchell's Corner as an urban neighbourhood, not being compatible with the routing of all city-bound buses and traffic towards the junction from Highworth Elizabeth Way roundabout. So, is there any discussion on Resolution 12A? The Local Liaison Forum recommends that the board should ask officers to consider routing any additional non-stopping buses via Elizabeth Way and Chesterton Road. Yes, point of clarification.
So the benefit to this would be?
Let me make my point then, because this will take the traffic straight to Mitchell's Corner. Because it's going to take the traffic down Elizabeth Way and along Chesterton Road to Mitchell's Corner.
It's a big drive, isn't it? To get there one way or the other.
Yeah.
So what resolution comes with this then? Yes, because if you're going down Chesterton Road, you end up in Mitchell's Corner. Andy, yes. Andy.
Can I just make an observation?
Yes, please. Andy Campbell from Stage.
My understanding of the city deal, and I think one councillor actually did mention it, and I'm glad I didn't waste all those evenings going to those meetings, that the idea for this is to reduce congestion and to encourage people onto public transport, walking and cycling. So far, you've taken out the bus priority that exists, and you haven't replaced it with anything that improves it. You've made it worse. You now want the bus operators to put more buses into park and ride sites and the busway, and you now want to send the people that are using them a more convoluted way to get into the city. If you think that's going to encourage people to use public transport, then you're delusional.
Councillor Ford.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in agreement with this proposal either. In some ways similar to what Andy Campbell's just said, but you know, in many ways I think we want to actually reduce the amount of traffic going along Milton Road from the Elizabeth Way roundabout down to Mitcham's Corner, and actually use it for bus priority over car priority, and be encouraging the cars which are going into Cambridge onto the ring road, i.e. along Elizabeth Way and over Elizabeth Way Bridge. And certainly we know at the moment, and there's no counter proposals for it, the roundabout at the junction of Elizabeth Way and Chesterton Road is often jammed solid, so it certainly wouldn't help buses to get through to the city centre and would deter people from catching buses. So I will not be supporting this resolution.
Yes.
I think this is really bringing up one of the problems we've got, that we've got two different, you know, it's exactly the interface between different schemes in the city deal, because on the one hand we're quite rightly here looking at Milton Road, but just at the bottom of Milton Road is Mitcham's Corner, and the work that's being done at Mitcham's Corner is about trying to create that more of a neighbourhood area with a better public realm and all the things that go with it. So the idea of keeping buses, if buses are stopping there to bring people to actually use the environment, it's a different thing. But if it's just a route through, it's very little benefit for the local neighbourhood. And I think as local residents, that's where we let them.
But if you put in 10,000 homes at Waterbeach, do you seriously think that by routing traffic, the additional traffic that's going to come from that, where you're proposing buses will go, that will cope with an increase in volume? Because in the measures that you're proposing, it doesn't appear that you've considered the traffic volumes from 10,000 homes at Waterbeach, because there's nothing in there that reduces congestion. Trees do not reduce congestion. So have you considered that in that proposal?
Yes,
There's a train station at Waterbeach.
I think we were all to a certain extent in agreement with that, because what we wanted to do was look at access restrictions to the city centre. I mean, that didn't know has now all been stalled for the time being. But the issue is, we are looking at this as the local liaison forum. We're looking at it from the neighbourhoods of people who live there, and we're trying to look at the interface between that and the traffic issues. Now, the restrictions of traffic coming in has to happen at some point. We understand that, and we want people to use more buses. But for local people, buses have got to stop so local people can use them, and that's another story that we need to understand.
Michael Bond, yeah.
Yes, sir, you're absolutely right. And what's the problem behind the whole of this particular exercise is the fond belief that you can actually cure congestion by speeding peak hour traffic through the city. You don't. You just create more slots for more commuters to use, because most of them are limited by the time it takes them to do the journey, not by how long it actually takes. Well, by how long it takes. And once you actually make it quicker, you just add more commuters to the queue, and you end up with exactly the same problem. When everyone is trying to get to the same place at the same time, you always get congestion. This is something I've always had arguments in South Devon, holiday weekends. It's the same problem here. You need to actually address the causes of congestion, which is the bunching of everybody into one small time slot. Spread them out.
Using that logic then, your proposal to send buses on a longer route to the city centre, but has a more direct route to Mitcham's Corner, is going against that argument.
No, because the original proposal was actually including a gate at Mitcham's Corner, which would allow buses to go through but not other traffic.
Well, I think that what we're going to have to do, because
It's all on the pocket now.
sorry, it's now 8:30, so I think that what I'm just going to have to do is say, will we vote on this resolution? The resolution is that the local liaison forum recommends that the board should ask officers to consider routing any additional non-stopping buses via Elizabeth Way and Chesterton Road. Who is in favour of that resolution? Who is against the resolution? Yeah, I think I'm against it. Yeah. Who is abstaining? Yes. Right, 4. Councillors Tunnicliffe?
5.
Oh, yes. 6, I think.
6, yeah.
So 6 abstentions, and how many against them? 5 against, right.
Oh, so it's
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
8. Good, 8 against. Now, what about... Yes. There, so that resolution was lost. What about the Milton Road Local Liaison Forum would like the City Deal officers to give serious consideration to such a scheme. There's actually a problem with this resolution because it wouldn't be the City Deal officers that would be having to address this issue. It would be the City Centre Access and Congestion Team. It's a different group. This is one of the problems with this. So, did you want to put that in? Yeah. But, I mean, the problem is that... I think...
Shall we vote?
The
Well, this
problem...
way we've written it doesn't quite work properly, so I've written the Milton Road LLF requests the City Centre Access and Congestion Team to consider this as part of their work in tackling congestion. So it's just the right people being talked to.
I see. So can I just clarify, it would say, ideas developed during the workshop included rerouting of traffic flows around the inner ring road to avoid clogging the inner radial routes, possibly creating a one-way system. That's the preamble. And now would you mind reading what you've just proposed?
So Milton Road LLF requests the City Centre Access and Congestion Team to consider this as part of their work in tackling congestion.
Is there a second for that motion?
Sorry?
Well, I'll second.
Yeah.
Oh, Michael, no, Mr. Bond will second it. Right. Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm not in favour of this being heard at all because we're going back to where we were before when we were talking about commuter parking and the park and ride charges. It's not the business of this LLF to be commenting on the overall approach of the city deal or the access studies in the centre. If that were the case, then we should have had it as one of our workshops, and we didn't, so we haven't considered it. And I don't think we should be considering it tonight.
I think that, who is the city centre access? I've got to, and congestion team. Are they the city council or are they the
It's
city?
Henry Bolton, who is part of the city deal, it's their special team.
Chair, can I help? Again, that team is within my group, so we all work together, and I'll certainly take it. I mean, we are, yes, you're right, you didn't consider it as part of the project, but it is considered as a broader term. All the projects that we've got are linked into the city centre access capacity study, so we will be taking it forward anyway, so it is, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Thank you.
Well, then we'll vote on it. Who is in favour of this amendment? Yes. Who is against this amendment? 3.
4.
4. And who would like to abstain? 2. 3.
There's one over there, one there, and there's 2 for one.
Right. Thank you. Yes. Now, we passed to 13. This relates to a strategic approach. The Milton Road Local Liaison Forum calls upon the City Deal Board to halt its programme of potentially destructive measures which are predicated on assumption that more bus lanes are the answer. Does anybody, we're over time, so any comments on this need to be brief. Anybody who hasn't spoken that would like to speak on this? What? Yes, no, but I was going to...
I've spoken before.
Yeah, but anyway, well, Councillor Sargent, because nobody else has indicated it.
Right. As far as I know, there aren't proposals for more bus lanes in the Milton Road Do Something proposal over what we've got at the moment. I mean, there's certainly proposals for shifting them from one side of the road to the other in certain places, which I think is the correct answer. But again, it's going back to going back to 11. It says we shouldn't do anything without in terms of committing to major engineering works unless we've done everything else. I see the city deal as a package of measures, and this is one of them. And unless people want to sit on Milton Road with it absolutely jam solid in the next 15 years, then we have got to make progress. And I've made that clear all the way along. I'm in support of the City Deal Board considering both the Do Optimum and the Do Something suggestion, and I think this resolution says they shouldn't look at anything at the moment, and I'm certainly going to support that.
Any other... Yes, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, I can appreciate where the point's coming from, but when I visited Strasbourg last year, my daughter to see the European Parliament, I was impressed by the tram system there, and also how much it cost. And if we were a much bigger place, say 200,000 or 300,000 people, we might be able to sustain such a system, but we can't. All we can sustain is buses, and we have to make the best of what we've got. So we need to use buses the best we can. And when it says, an assumption that bus lanes are the answer, well, no, they're not the only answer. In fact, we're the biggest cycling city in the UK. Cycling is probably the answer here to a large extent. But buses are the answer for a lot of people too that can't cycle longer distances or can't get into town in any other way. So we do need to use buses. That is a fact. And I think the idea that destructive measures and such like that, it's not practical. We have to be practical. We need buses.
Yes, but I think this is, of all of the resolutions that have been proposed, I think this is unwise because there's an implication of criticism in it, and I don't think it's intended. But you're making an assumption that more bus lanes are the only answer. No, nobody's ever suggested that, as you say, and I don't think we should be putting this forward because it's not giving the people who have to make these difficult decisions the credit for being flexible and trying to take these things on board in the best possible way they can. And I don't think their measures are either potentially destructive necessarily. Some of them, are trying to be constructive. So I think it's unnecessarily critical, and I don't think it's helpful. So I won't be voting. In fact, I should be voting against this.
I know that Councillor Sargent,
I understand your point there about the language. Unfortunately, we haven't had anything but other modes of transport besides buses, cycling, walking. We have a new train station opening shortly in the north of Cambridge. We expect to get one at Allenbrooks. Where are all the new employment sites? In those areas, Allenbrooks, train station, CP1. And this is going to be a major new mode of transport, and we don't know of any modelling that's gone on to take that into account. So I guess that's part of the problem, as I imagine. But I understand what you're saying about the language.
As somebody who's been knocked off there, I don't say this every meeting. I don't say this every LLF meeting, but as somebody who's been knocked off their bike twice on Milton Road, I need to express an interest. This resolution says that we shouldn't improve the cycleways on Milton Road, and I certainly wouldn't be in favour of that because the current proposals of Do Something do not change the width of the road in the vast majority of cases, but what it does do is improve segregated cycleways along the whole length of Milton Road on both sides of the road, as does Do Optimum. And we've already said we would like the board to consider both Do Optimum and Do Something. This resolution is saying, no, we're not. Why have we been wasting our time for the last 3 months?
I don't actually, oh, yes.
Sorry, get some legal advice from Fiona.
Well, I'd actually like to return to number 1, resolution, which we've all agreed, and go to the preamble. The do optimum alternative. The Milton Road Local Liaison Forum has considered the alternative proposal for the layout of Milton Road developed by local residents associations together with CanCycle, known as the do optimum design, details of which are provided separately and which we're giving to the board. Sorry. The design incorporates feedback received during the workshops on cross-sections, allocation of space, major junction layouts and landscaping. It offers a great opportunity for Cambridge to pioneer a welcoming, best-in-class, tree-lined gateway into the city that will transform the way people choose to travel, because it will provide a safe and calming environment for all modes of use. From the evidence of the workshops, it is very likely to attract majority support from local stakeholders, and the local liaison board believes that it meets the objectives of the City Deal Board to a greater degree than the Do Something proposals. We've actually passed a resolution in accordance with that preamble, and now what we're proposing in number 13 is to deny all that. I can't vote for number 13 because I cannot vote against the proposition that what we can have here is a welcoming, best-in-class, tree-lined gateway into the city that will transform the way people choose to travel, because it will provide a safe and calming environment for all modes of use. I'm going to put this resolution, and I ask all those who want to vote in favour of resolution 13 to do so now. And I want all those who want to vote against resolution 13 to do so now. And all those who wish to vote in terms of an abstention to do so now.
1.
Right, so 3. Good, thank you. Well, that concludes our resolutions. The only thing to do now is two things. The date of the next meeting, our next proposition will be to go to the